It's shocking to me how many people are sleeping on this key crypto narrative. Layer 2 scaling solutions. We have seen through 2022 that Polygon MATIC was and continues to be a standout performer with a lot of flow of funds rotating across to this Ethereum layer 2 scaling solution. In this video, I'm going to share with you two other altcoins which are not Polygon MATIC, which I want to add to my portfolio to make sure I have enough exposure to this key narrative. Now, before we get straight into that, smash up likes, don't forget to subscribe, but I need to share with you this important snippet from Pantera Capital. So this is from one of the biggest VCs and funds in the crypto space sharing their outlook for 2023, and specifically they say although the Ethereum merge had many positive impacts, lowering gas fees wasn't one of them, and so layer 2 scaling solutions remain a critical piece. And they go ahead to mention a bunch of other things, but I wanted to share that with you because going into 2022 a lot of people thought that Ethereum's merge would be the end for layer 2 scaling solutions, and I kept shouting from the rooftop, nobody listened, that Polygon MATIC would be absolutely fine. Just because Ethereum was going from its move from proof of work to proof of stake, this didn't suddenly mean that suddenly it was going to become a super fast blockchain, nor would it mean that gas fees were coming down. Now, my personal view on this is even if Ethereum is able to continue with their roadmap and go through all the splurge and surge and all the other phases that they've got in their roadmap, we've broken that down in a separate video, then I still think the demand for layer 2 scaling solutions will remain. And then if that's my thesis, what do I want to be invested in? Because you can't just bet on one jockey and one horse in Polygon MATIC. They're clearly the outstanding performer in terms of the layer 2 space. But what are the other ones in contention? Because my focus now is shifting around building a small portfolio around layer 2s. This is part of my portfolio I've been neglecting. I've always had exposure to Polygon MATIC. They were the outstanding performer, like I said. They had the early adopter, early mover advantage, and I continue to DCA into that over many, many years. But now there are other good layer 2 scaling solutions which we need to analyze and acknowledge and see which ones do we want to add to our portfolio. So we're going to break that down in this video. Before we get into deciding which projects we want to be invested in, we need to understand what, broadly speaking, what are the different types of layer 2 scaling solutions? And they're very different, and also this can be quite a complex field. So very briefly, I want to break this down into side chains, which is where Polygon MATIC will fall under. Okay, that's your side chain. You then have two broad categories called optimistic rollups and ZK rollups. Yes, there are state channels, there are plasmas and Validium, but that's beyond the scope of this video. Let's try to simplify this and say you've got side chains, which is where MATIC falls under, and then you've got optimistic rollups and ZK rollups. If you want to know the exact breakdown of what this means and the pros and cons, there are tables like this which you can look at. I've also done a separate video which I'll link up for you here so you can get caught up on what the difference and pros and cons are between optimistic and ZK rollups. To give you a brief view on this, just so we got enough for this video here, you need to understand that there are different things that they can drive, okay? So there are pros and cons in terms of the throughput. It's similar to layer 1 solutions, right? When you're evaluating a layer 1 solution, some will give you lots of throughput, but they may miss out on security. So straight away here, you can have a payment channel which gives you 25 million transactions per second. You can have a side chain which gives you 65,000 transactions per second and good block finality. But look at the block finality. The difference here between this was nearly instant settling. This one settles in 2.1 seconds. And then when you go to optimistic, you get less transactions per second and it takes longer for finality, and similar for ZK Sync. But you got to remember, ZK Sync in terms of security is even more stronger because zero knowledge rollup assumes no knowledge, whereas an optimistic rollup assumes everything is correct and only checks if there's something that's brought up to its attention to go check that that could be a dodgy transaction. Okay, so very broad level, very layman terms, that's what we're talking about here. There's this way off, this trilemma almost, of balancing security with using Ethereum's base layer for security versus transactions per second and block finality. Okay, if you want detailed breakdowns of this, there's plenty of content out there which you get caught up on that, including the video which I've posted, so make sure you go check that out. In my mind, when I look at this, broadly speaking, there are two that I want to be looking at in this video, and they both fall into the category of optimistic rollup. Now, once I find a good ZK rollup that I want to be invested in, and there are a handful that we can look at, I'll come on to that shortly, then I will let you know where I'm sat with that. So if you guys want to go ahead, you can take a screenshot of this page here, which basically lists most of the layer 2 scaling solutions. And you can see here, they're highlighted which ones are optimistic rollups, which ones are sidechain like Polygon, and which ones are ZK rollup as well. So I'm not going to be speaking about any of these ZK rollup ones today, but I will be focusing on Optimism, which is an optimistic rollup, Metis, which is also an optimistic roll-up, and we'll talk about Arbitrum as well. Now, Arbitrum is a great layer 2 scaling solution, but you have to remember their token is not available yet. There are rumors that they will be launching an ARBI token, but that's not there yet, okay? So that's out of the scope of this video in terms of us adding it to our portfolio. So let's focus on Optimism and Metis. Guys, quick story. So the other day, I got a message from one of my team members, and it turned out he got caught up in a phishing attack. Yes, these phishing attacks are getting more and more sophisticated, whereby the attackers are able to pretend they are a senior person in a company and request payment from somebody else. On top of that, I got another email from one of our IT guys who said I need to change all my passwords because they've been leaked on the dark web. This is a complete pain, and that is why today I'm proud to partner with Aura. Aura is an easy to use app which gives you everything you need to stay safe online. Aura protects you from scammers and hackers by scanning the dark web, where criminals sell stolen information, looking for your emails, your passwords, and your social security numbers. It then alerts you fast if it finds anything. Aura also gives you near real-time alerts on suspicious credit inquiries, like if someone was opening a loan or a credit agreement in your name. Their built-in VPN also allows you to stay anonymous online by keeping your browsing history and personal information safe and encrypted. Aura even helps you manage what your kids can do on their devices as well, so you can restrict specific apps, set screen time limits, and you can even set focus times to ensure your children are doing their homework instead of binging on my videos on YouTube. And not to forget, their password manager also lets you store and access all your passwords in one place. Now here's the thing, maybe you've got an app or two that does some of these things. The beauty with Aura, and what I specifically like about it, is that they've managed to bundle all of these into one place. So you just need Aura and it'll take care of all your online phishing, scamming, and VPN needs. So let Aura do the hard work of keeping you safe online, and we've got a 14-day free trial for you and up to 60% off on the subscriptions. Definitely head over to my link, ijaz.uk/Aura to take advantage of that, and let's get straight back into the video. Okay, so let's dive in. Let's first start off by looking at the key leader in the layer 2 blockchain space and Ethereum scaling solution space. And in my portfolio, this will continue to be the anchor of the layer 2 section of my portfolio, okay? So none of these other positions which I'm going to add are going to are going to be a bigger part of my portfolio than Polygon MATIC will be to start with. They can grow higher, but to start with, Polygon MATIC is sitting here at 10 billion in market cap with the 11.7 billion in fully diluted market cap. But more importantly than that, we know it's a strong performer. It's had a good 2022. It's up 5% today. It's moving well here at the $1.18 mark. But I want to show you this, is the daily transactions. And you can see if we go back here, it has managed a peak, a highest number in a day, of 9.1 million transactions in a single day. If you look at where it's currently trading at, which is obviously slightly lower than where it once was, because we're obviously in the middle of a bear market, it's still delivering 3 million transactions per day. This is not a joke whatsoever. And there's a reason why so many people are bullish around Polygon MATIC. So we've got to use this as our gold standard, as our benchmark for how we're measuring the competition. So speaking of which, let's then take a look at Optimism, because Optimism has been doing really well. We're going to come onto the charts for these projects very shortly, but it ran up quite nicely here. There was a lot of hype around its initial launch. They did a really good airdrop and loads of people were excited, okay? And by the way, if you want to see a deep dive into the tokenomics of Optimism, I've made a really popular video which you guys really did like. I'll link that up for you guys to go get caught up on the tokenomics of Optimism as well. They managed 800,000 transactions on this day, right? January the 12th this year, which is not bad at all. Now, we've had a huge drop down, which I'm not too sure what caused this massive spike down, and now you're sitting at 151,000 transactions per day. So you can clearly see this is definitely got more potential here, as in the second best potential after Polygon MATIC. Let's then take a look at Arbitrum. Arbitrum on its highest day ever managed just over 500,000 transactions back in November of 2022. It's now sitting at around 326,000 transactions per day. So again, decent volume, but you can see Polygon MATIC 3 million versus a tenth of that in Arbitrum. Let's then jump across to Metis, and Metis is sitting at around 14,600 daily transactions. Yes, Metis is sitting at 14,600 daily transactions. So you can definitely see this is much, much smaller of a project. That's fine. We can look at the daily transactions, but what we really want to be getting at, like when you're buying anything, is value, right? If somebody sells you a 10 kilogram necklace, for a certain price versus a 1 kilogram network at a low price. You don't look at it like that, right? You're looking at the price per gram. You want to value this. So when we look at it, we want to jump across and say, okay, what are we paying for Metis? What are we paying for Metis? So when you look at Metis right now, you're sitting at $158 million in market cap. This is tiny, guys. This is a very small project. And you've got to be very, very careful that you do not become a degen and load up your portfolio with loads of this. You got to remember, this is going to be a small part of my layer 2 part of my portfolio. So if you imagine my portfolio, heavy on Bitcoin, heavy on Ethereum, then large market caps and smaller market caps, got all my layer 1s in there as well. I'm going to have a slither of that portfolio. Think of a small pizza slice that is going to be for layer 2s. And most of that pizza slice is going to be taken up by Polygon MATIC. But there's going to be a little bit of a room there where I want exposure to some others, right? And that's where I'm looking at things like Optimism and Metis. So when you look at Metis, 158 million there. Fully diluted market cap is just about double that because half the currency is in circulating supply. You can see that 44% is in circulating supply. So you're talking a $360 million fully diluted market cap. Not too bad whatsoever, right? Not too bad whatsoever. Now, if you look at the year-to-date chart, you can see it's pretty much been a nice move here this year, like a lot of things have. And if you look at the peak this has been at, this is sat at a peak here price of 314. To put that into perspective, the peak market cap of this project sat at $648 million. Okay, so nothing crazy, not even hit the $1 billion mark, and that's just getting back to all-time highs. So we'll come back to the TA shortly on what I think can happen with Metis. So that's what you're paying for. Low transactions, they've not got huge traction, but the technology exists, it works, they've got proof of concept, and it's very early stage. Think of this like investing in a startup, very risky, you may not see your money back again, but it's one of those where you know the space is moving. I just showed you the report from Pantera Capital. We know it's a space which, well, I personally think it's a space which is going to continue to thrive, and I want to make sure I've got exposure to a couple of these players. Now, given the risk, it'll be a smaller part of the portfolio, right? That's the trade-off. Let's then jump on to Optimism, right? I just showed you that Optimism has more transactions and has proven itself in terms of the daily transactions it's been able to achieve. Now, when you look at this, the market cap is sitting at $500 million, right? Which is still quite small. 500 million here is, it's not too shabby, but it's small, right? Compared to what we're then going to look at, which is its fully diluted market cap. And this is what has scared me. When this initially launched, guys, Optimism, and again, I made the video at the time, go watch it. I was worried that the valuation was getting out of hand. I think it's a good project. I believe in optimistic rollups. I think they're a good solution. I think they've got good daily transactions. But this just always bothers me. And this is the reason I've been struggling to jump in. Now, $9.6 billion there in fully diluted market cap. Remember, Polygon MATIC is at 11 billion fully diluted. Now, I know the fully diluted can sometimes be a misnomer because obviously we know here the total supply is still yet to circulate and we need to look at the release schedule. Again, go watch my tokenomics video to get details on that. But we are sitting here currently at 500 million. So fine, we've got to take that into context. Now, let's jump on over to the Metis chart. And again, look at this on Metis, guys. You can see here we've had obviously a powerful week here on Metis, up 63%. A lot of people are shouting about this project now, but you're still in the early innings. When you look at things based on where we're at, this is not the reason to FOMO in and jump in. If you're jumping into this project, it's because you think the all-time high here at $174 is absolutely nothing and you're going to rocket past beyond there. So this is the way I like to architect in my mind for it to be investment grade, because I don't FOMO in behind these green candles. When I decide to add a project, I'm going with it through thick and thin. If the price drops all the way back down and gives up that 60%, that doesn't matter because I believe in the project from a fundamental, tokenomic and macro perspective. Right, so if I look at the macro perspective, do I think layer 2 scaling solutions are going to be around and going to continue to be a battleground? Yes. Do I think I have a good understanding of who the key players are? Yeah, we just kind of went through that, right? Polygon MATIC, you've got Optimism, you've got Arbitrum if they come up with a token, you've got Metis, then you've got to look at some of the ZK players, right? Loopring, you've got Boba Network, there's a few others out there that you need to look at, and so you get an idea of the landscape. Then you need to back your players. So if I look at the Fibonacci ratio, and I went from swing low to swing high, you can see the Fibonacci ratio comfortably brings you the 0.618 to 0.65 mark. Again, if none of this makes sense to you guys, ijaz.uk/TA. Don't just sit there going, oh, what's he talking about? Like, if you're not keeping up, it's because it's in the course and it's all broken down by chapter completely free. It won't be free forever, but take advantage of it so you can learn all this stuff. It took me 10 years plus to learn, right? And I paid for a lot of this education. That comfortably brings you to $114 to $119 per token. And so when you're looking at where you are now at $35, that's a crazy return, not even to return back to all-time highs. Then when you look at getting back to all-time highs, gets you to 174, even more tastier. But that's not why you invest, right? You want to back a risky project like this, a smaller market cap project, which we just covered off, right? 150 million in market cap. unless you think it can really explode. And that's where even this is a conservative target for me, which is, can it get to 273? So my investment thesis would be based on, can it actually get back up to there? And then you're closer to kind of working your way towards a 280 to 350 million dollar market cap, and then you're going to get some decent returns, okay? But either way, what's the thesis? The thesis is, can Polygon MATIC continue to be number one? Yeah, chances are it could, right? If you imagine you got Ethereum, doesn't mean that you don't invest in other good layer one solutions, right? Doesn't mean you don't invest in Cardano, or you don't invest in Solana at the time, or you didn't invest in Near Protocol or Phantom or any of these other projects, right? Maybe they won't reach Ethereum for a very long time. Same with these layer 2 solutions. Maybe they'll never reach Polygon MATIC for a very long time. But can they take some of that market share? That's the question, right? Because when people are using these platforms, they're looking at the Polygon fee, they'll look at the Optimism fee, they'll look at the Arbitrum fee, they'll look at the Metis fee, and then they choose where they want to transact. It's a competitive battleground for these layer 2 scaling solutions. So that's what I'm looking at there in terms of price targets for Metis. Please, of course, be very, very careful. Do not chase green candles. If you don't have a conviction in a project like this, would you really be tracing here after 4 solid weeks here? No, you'd be waiting for pullbacks. Right? If I'm looking to acquire and I make the ultimate decision, I'll let you guys know, and I'll be looking to buy these on pullbacks. I'm not chasing it when it's running away from its weekly EMA ribbon. This is all the stuff we teach in the TA course. Links in description. But you want to be waiting for pullbacks. Buy from position of strength. If it comes back towards these levels at 25, take a nibble, right? But it's a long-term view of nibbling and building this out. And the way I start that is I'll go, okay, what part of my portfolio am I dedicating to layer 2s? How much of that has Polygon MATIC taken? How much of that am I going to give to Optimism? How much of that am I going to give to Metis? And what are my percentage splits going to be? And I will not go beyond that split, okay? And then I'll DCA that amount until I get to that amount, and I won't take a penny more. If it goes over that because it grows, I'll trim and I'll rotate into some MATIC and maybe even some Bitcoin, Ethereum, some of those profits. So these small projects do not overwhelm your portfolio. I've seen so many people make that mistake where they made a good bet on a risky project and it completely overtakes their portfolio and they never trim any profits. And then the price just comes all the way back down and they're back to where they started, if not worse. Right, let's do a similar evaluation here on Optimism. Before I come onto the weekly with the price targets, look at this. Good extension from its EMA ribbon, consolidating in a symmetrical triangle. If I drop this down into the 4-hourly chart, you can see it's really trying to wait on a direction to move here. And it could have an interesting move if we can get a break from here. Again, it's obviously waiting for Bitcoin. Most of the market is waiting for Bitcoin to do its next bit as well. Bitcoin's up 1.6% incidentally today. Phantom up 6% incidentally today as well. So it's a nice green day after the Asian markets have given us a bit of momentum. But this is not a Bitcoin video. We want to focus here on Optimism. So this got a good, looking for a nice breakout. But more importantly, what is the weekly chart telling us? What is going on with this project? And is this something that is backable? Well, the first thing you need to understand is the price is already getting out of hand, right? If you look at this on the initial launch, this ran up to a high of 220 that week. And then months later, in August, you ran up to a high there of 220 again. So you kind of got to the same level and got rejected and came all the way back down here, down to levels at 64 cents. Now, it's just beaten both these highs. So it's just broken through very important resistance. If you were to draw that resistance, you'd pretty much be drawing it about here, right? It's just cleared through that resistance. If I go into the daily chart, you can see it's just trying to break a very key level resistance. And that's why this triangle is going to be important, because if it can clear through this, the price could move quite powerfully here over the short term. Big double bottom pattern, right? If you wanted to categorize it like that, you can say it's almost like this, boom, boom, and then you get set up for your breakout. Now you may get a retest of the neckline before you run up, and that's what you have to watch out for when you're trading it. Okay, now let's focus back again on the weekly chart, and we want to decide, okay, where could this head to? And the reality is, you're in price discovery at this point. If you're looking at the market cap, you've got to ask yourself, realistically, can this get to the 3 million daily transactions per day on Optimism? You managed to achieve 800,000 almost on its best day. Now, like we said, Polygon MATIC is doing about 3 million a day. On top of that, they've got really good biz dev partnerships. Now, Optimism has managed to gather a lot of attention. It's got a lot of backing. A lot of people are interested in the success of Optimism. So they've done that hard bit in terms of getting some notoriety. Now they've got to deliver with transactions, with low fees, with security, and making sure that they can build out some of those biz dev partnerships, which Polygon MATIC has proved is the way to go. Can you do something with Disney? Can you do something, with the likes of Starbucks and these kinds of names, which is really going to give you the momentum behind your sale? The argument you could make is, well, if MATIC is sitting at 10 billion in market cap, not fully diluted, just 10 billion in market cap, can Optimism get to that level? Well, by doing so, you're almost saying that Optimism can 20x from here. But that's where you've got to be very careful, because you cannot ignore the fully diluted market cap. Okay, until we know the behavior of the tokenomics here in this release schedule, you could be getting yourself caught up. And that's the risk a lot of people are making who aren't following this data carefully. Look at the market cap, $500 million. So you look at that and go, hang on a second, this is 1/20th of where Polygon MATIC is. That is insane. The transactions are not 1/20th, right? Surely it's a great value, but you've got to look at this. 9.6 billion fully diluted versus MATIC 11. So the difference in their valuation is not huge right now. So I've got to be very careful. If I do add it, which I'm not saying I'm not going to add it, I've got to be very careful and understand the tokenomics. Remember, tokenomics can make or break a good project. So there you have it, guys. Layer 2 scaling solutions, a big theme which I'm not going to neglect going into 2023. I've identified what are the key players which I want to invest in. Arbitrum, if they come out with a token, will definitely be added to the mix. And now I've just got to decide on how much do I want to allocate and when do I strategically want to enter these plays. Please remember that it's not just about whether you invest or not. It's how much you allocate and how you make sure that your risk to reward is balanced correctly. If you're running into something like Optimism, thinking it's 1/20th the size of Polygon MATIC and therefore should just 20x overnight, you may get a rude awakening when you actually start to understand the details behind the market cap dynamics and what happens with dilution. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to smash the likes and subscribe as always. Don't forget to go watch this video here. If you want more details and more breakdowns on layer 2 scaling solutions, I know it's a hot topic, then make sure you let me know in the comments and we can get some more videos made around this space. Don't forget to go watch this video here and I'll see you in the next one.